let's talk about something that affects pretty much everything we do: money. And more specifically, how it travels. Just like you need a passport to cross a border, your money kind of does too. So today, we're diving into the rules that give capital its very own passport. I mean, just imagine for a second, you want to invest in a cool new company overseas, or send some cash to your family abroad, or even just buy something online from another country, and you're told, sorry, your money can't go there. It sounds wild, right? Well, that's the world we'd be living in without the free movement of capital. So, to really get why this is such a big deal, we have to look at the European Union's single market. Now, this whole thing is built on 4 fundamental freedoms. And you guessed it, the free movement of capital is one of them. It's like the essential plumbing that makes the entire system actually work. And why is it so important? Well, because a modern economy literally runs on the flow of money. Capital has to be able to move around without friction, so businesses can invest and expand, so new ideas can get funded, and so all of us can make simple, everyday payments across borders. Without that freedom, the economy would just grind to a halt. Okay, so what's the legal magic that makes all of this possible? It all comes down to a really powerful rule called Article 63 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. Seriously, you can think of it as the ultimate all-access pass for your money. And the real power of this rule? It's the scope. It doesn't just say some restrictions are banned, it says all restrictions. And get this, it's not just about money moving around inside the EU. It applies to capital moving between an EU country and, well, anywhere else in the world. That makes it a truly global principle.
Now, this isn't some dusty old rule just sitting in a law book. It's a living, breathing principle that's constantly being shaped by court cases. Its main job is to guarantee that investors from anywhere can get access to a country's market. And we're talking a massive scope here, covering a huge range of investments and applying to countries far beyond the EU's borders.
So, this is where it gets really interesting. If Article 63 prohibits all restrictions, what does the law actually mean by restriction? Is it just about obvious laws that openly block foreign money? Well, as it turns out, the answer is way, way broader than you might think. And this is the absolute key. A restriction is defined as any obstacle. It doesn't matter if a country's law treats foreign and domestic investors exactly the same. If that law creates any kind of hurdle or barrier for capital to move, it can be seen as a restriction under EU law. There's this landmark case that really set the standard here, and it involved the Church of Scientology. This case became the benchmark, and it showed that you don't need to prove a law is trying to be discriminatory. Just the mere existence of an obstacle is enough to set off the alarm bells of Article 63. So let me walk you through how this plays out. Imagine a country makes a new law. It says that for certain types of investments, you need to get government approval first. Now, on the surface, that sounds kind of reasonable, right? But the European Court of Justice looked at it and said, hold on, that process, the simple act of having to ask for permission, creates a potential delay. It's a hurdle. And because it's an obstacle, it's a restriction, even if the government ends up saying yes to every single request. Okay, so this sounds incredibly powerful. Almost absolute. So are there any situations where a country can legally hit the brakes and justify putting up an obstacle? Well, yes, there are. And that brings us to the other side of the coin, Article 65. Article 65 lays out a very specific list of legitimate reasons a country can use to justify putting up a roadblock. And we're talking about serious public interest stuff like protecting public policy, security, or health, along with crucial tools to fight things like tax evasion. But, and this is a really big but, there's a catch. A country can't just use these reasons as a smokescreen to protect its own economy. You can't block foreign investment just to give your local companies an edge. The reason has to be a genuine, non-economic public concern. So, how does this all stack up against the EU's other big freedoms? Well, there are definitely similarities. That rule about justifications having to be non-economic, that's pretty standard. And so is the use of a proportionality test, which we'll get to in just a second. But there is a key difference. For capital, the courts have hinted that the list of possible justifications is a bit more flexible, a bit more open than for the other freedoms. So what this all leads to is this really fascinating, constant tension. It's a delicate balancing act between this incredibly powerful freedom for money to move wherever it wants and the right of a nation to step in and protect its own fundamental public interests. So how on earth do the courts decide where to draw that line? They use a tool called the proportionality test. It really boils down to 2 key questions. Is this restriction actually suitable for achieving the public goal? And is it truly necessary? Or is there a less restrictive way to get the job done? Basically, the court is asking, are you using a sledgehammer to crack a nut? And this brings us right back to the whole idea behind cases like the one involving Scientology. The entire point of this careful test is to strike that exact balance. It's designed to give investors the legal certainty they need to, invest, while still giving governments the ability to protect their citizens from genuine threats. So, at the end of the day, the free movement of capital isn't some absolute unstoppable force. It's a core principle for sure, but one that is constantly being negotiated and weighed against another hugely important principle: a nation's sovereign right to protect the public good. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In this deeply interconnected global economy where billions can cross borders in a millisecond, this balancing act is more important than ever. It forces us to ask a really fundamental question: who should have the final say on where money can go, the market or the state?